Today in this video, we are going to talk about how to build trust again after a betrayal. I have helped thousands of people heal physically, mentally, and emotionally from the wound from betrayal, resentment, and trauma. When life throws you more than you can handle, what are you going to do about that? What happens so often is when you already have a lot on your plate, like a disease, death of a family member, abuse, divorce, financial crisis, betrayal, really devastating of some kind, and then you have additional crisis. How do you really manage that? How do you really prioritize which stress need your most attention? How did you do all that without sacrificing your health, your well-being, your sanity? In this video, we will be talking about how to triage all the things that need our attention. We will be asking the 4 questions that you can ask yourself. If you are numbing, distracting, avoiding yourself, something that we typically do when stress hit us. We will also talk about the toxic thoughts and what do you do and how to manage them. And lastly, we will talk about the 4 stages of trust rebuilding again. When life hit us really hard, we often lost our ability to trust in life again, or in others, and even trust ourselves. How do we build that again? Let's start with betrayal. So often, people carry the hurt, the betrayal from 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 40 years ago. So many of us are still carry the anger, the grudges from the past to the present. We all hear the same old things that say that time heals all wounds. But what I find is not really so with betrayal. It all starts with my own betrayal, which lead me into this transformation journey. I dedicated myself to study. How do we experience betrayal? What really helps us heal? And what happened to a person mentally, physically, emotionally when we get betrayed by people who are closest to us, who lie to us, deceive us? And what holds us back from healing? This study led me to the big discovery that was found by many experts. Number 1, healing from betrayal is different than any other trauma because betrayal is so intentional and we take it so personally. The whole self-confidence need to be totally rebuilt. If you ever wonder why it is so hard to heal from betrayal, because you will have to rebuild yourself from abandonment, worthiness, confidence, rejection, heartbroken, trust, shame, guilt. That's all shattered. And we have to rebuild all of this. And we carry the shame and guilt with us. When do you create transformations? You gave your heart and soul to the betrayer whom you thought they love you, and in return they betray you intentionally. Number 2, if we are to heal, we have to go through the 5 stages of transformation. We have to study the science of transformations. And now we know how we feel mentally, emotionally, physically at each stage. So often we see someone is particularly stuck in one stage. And now we know why. And now we know how to help them to get them out from each stage and know what to do about it so that they can move to the next stage. Number 3, according to research, they found that there's a collection of symptoms emotionally, physically, and mentally that is so common that some researchers even call it post-betrayal syndrome. When we feel betrayed and do not completely heal from it, it will affect our relationship, our work, and our health. So how do they affect us? Now, in relationship, what often I see in my client is we see it in 2 ways. We build a big wall around us. We want to keep the bad guys away. But in doing so, we also end up keeping the good guys away. Number 2 is a repeated betrayal. Same scenario, although different phases, because we have not learned the profound lesson until we got it. So that once we learn the lesson, it doesn't need to repeat again. So what kind of lesson that we need to learn? It could be, I am worthy. I deserve someone better. Or we need to learn how to set better boundaries. And again, once the lesson is learned, there's no reason to repeat that lesson again. In health, we have learned to manage our stress and any stress related symptoms. And we learn to manage that very well. But the root of it is the trauma from betrayal. We might be going to well-meaning doctors for medications and almost like banging our head against the wall. Why is our body not healing? Or why is our body not well? And what I see is a lot of people going from psychologist to psychologist, counselor to counselor. And they could not find the answer to why their body is not well. And many times people come to me and say, this is life. I just need to learn how to manage them. And that is not true. And in work, we are afraid to trust the coworker or the boss. Or we lost the confidence to even ask for a raise that we deserve. So we feel bitter. We feel resentful, which is the energy we bring to work every day with us and to our life. And people in our life just reflect the same energy back to us. If you are struggling with this, I invite you to ask if there's an unhealed betrayal trauma. So many of us are living life, putting fire everywhere in our life all the time and at the same time. I would say it is critical for us to triage what needs our attention. Now, I would recommend you to prioritize them into different groups. This is what I learned as a nurse. And I grouped them into A, B, C, D, E. So ask, what can you handle right now? Triage is so critical. This is how we manage patients in a hospital. What can you shelve away for now? Key number 2, when people are struggling with any crisis, we numb, we avoid, or we distract because we don't want to deal with it or feel it. When we use things to distract us, to avoid them, to numb ourselves, and avoid facing it, that voice will get louder and louder, and especially at night when you are trying to go to bed. We keep doing it until we can, but at some point we have to stop and face it. It is like cleaning a garage. At first it is messy because you're taking everything out. Once you organize it, some pile you need to throw away because you no longer use them, or rearrange it. Only after you do it, you can only appreciate the space after you dive in and done the work. It is the same thing to any healing. When we make the decisions to stop numbing, avoiding, and distracting. We face it square in the face. In this stage, it is critical to have support to help you to move through it, because it is very scary and it's really hard to go through grieving alone. And our nervous system requires someone to co-regulate our nervous system together. When we make that decision to stop numbing, distracting, and avoiding, ask yourself this question. Number one, am I numbing, distracting, and avoiding? If so, how do I do that? Number two, what am I pretending not to see, not to feel? Number three, what would life look like if I live like this for the next 5 years? What would my life look like? Play out that relationship issue, career issue, health issue, time and freedom restriction. What could life look like if I change? What would life look like if you actually change? Transformations only happen when you make the decisions to change. When we have nothing to lose, that's when we make the leap. Give yourself the gift that you're meant to do. The fourth step of trust rebuilding process. We tend to question life when crises happen. Trust building or rebuilding require time and patience and compassion to yourself. So number one step, rebuild trust is the most basic aspect of life. Our worldview has shattered after the betrayal. It is just a shock to the body, the mind. So the first step is to rebuild our faith to life again. Take a basic step. Number two, learn to trust our gut. So often we know something doesn't seem right, but we turn it down. We need to rebuild our intuitive or gut feeling again. If you get a sense of something, trust it. Go to an experience where you feel unsafe or wrong. Your security or safety is in question. Do you feel it in your heart or do you feel it in your gut? How does your body respond? That is how your body communicates to you. Trust your internal GPS. Ask, what does it feel more like? Does it feel expansive or does it feel constrictive? Trust the feeling. Number three, trust in yourself again. You say something, you have to mean it. Follow through what you say. Learn to trust your words again. This is so critical. We need to trust ourselves again. Number four, cautiously and carefully trust others again. Again, this is so important aspect of our life too. I see often that when people say yes, that pull them from self-care and their own priority. So learn to say no to what doesn't bring you joy. We say yes so often because it feels so uncomfortable to say no. It is time to nurture yourself. What would life look like if you speak to yourself the way you speak to your best friend? What would life look like? So, give yourself the compassion, the time, and the patience. If you would like to learn more and would need support from me, connect with me, drop me a comment. I'll see you in my next video.